Unfortunately, in the Indian legal context, there's no clear definition today. But the best or the closest would be that it is similar to a game of skill. It's important because without that regulatory clarity, you will constantly have this mismatch where you're saying that opinion trading is a game, but actually, like I said, it's much more than that. Retail traders end up losing the most, or retail investors lose the most. And that's why SEBI constantly comes out with investor protection mechanisms, but they still lose. So unfortunately, in the Indian legal context, there's no clear definition today. But the best or the closest would be that it is similar to a game of skill. However, I would say that that is not an adequate definition because you are forcing into, games of skill. And what is a game of skill? You're forcing prediction markets into that and opinion trading into that. It's actually much broader than that. Especially if you look at the context of how this market works outside of India. In the US, it is actually regulated by the CFTC, which is the Commodities and Futures Trading Commission, which is a similar body as the SEBI in India. So there it's treated almost like a stock market would be, except for information. So the most ideal definition is that. But today, in the specific Indian legal context, it has to be defined as a game of skill. There is no other recourse there.
And sir, why is regulatory clarity on opinion trading and prediction market important for us, sir?
So it's important because without that regulatory clarity, you will constantly have this mismatch where you're saying that opinion trading is a game, but actually, like I said, it's much more than that. So it needs to be given its own definition. It needs to be given its own regulatory perspective. Even if SEBI does not want to regulate it, at least MITI should regulate it as understanding that it is something separate from the overall ecosystem that exists today on anything, whether it is gaming or whether it is outside of that. This is a new and innovative industry, so it should be treated as such. And without that regulatory clarity, you have issues like where all opinion trading companies today are facing multiple legal cases across multiple states, and even taxation and all are very unclear on how this should be taxed, how this should be regulated. So because of that, these companies are not able to actually grow and realize the true potential of what opinion trading can be, which at its very core is democratization of information. Because people are, and also democratization of trading, because this takes real people's opinions into account on the basis of what is happening on the ground. And then you are able to actually cut through even things like misinformation, because people are putting money to give you their opinion on what's happening in a particular field. So this takes away from that when you have uncertainty in regulation.
And sir, you have given the example of US, which is working under the CFTC oversight. Which are the other countries that provide robust regulatory models for opinion trading, sir?
So at present, outside of the US, no other countries, as to my knowledge, no other countries are doing it. Other countries, of course, have more liberal regulations in terms of how businesses and these kinds of formats can operate. So in those countries, they don't face this kind of regulatory burden or regulatory challenge. They are allowed to operate under whatever definition it is, but they're allowed to operate. And in fact, those are companies that are growing. So if you and growing very exponentially globally. So in the US, you have Kalshi, which is regulated by CFTC. Outside of the US, you have a couple of others, which are actually, on a global scale, they're helping people also disseminate information and trade on their information cross-border. So that is, I think, the short answer to your question, only the US today. But outside of that, other countries are more liberal in their regulations.
And sir, my last question to you is, sir, in your view, how could a well-regulated prediction market framework benefit India's digital economy and potentially deepen its capital markets, sir?
So in terms of the capital markets, I'll take that up first. Today, for anyone to trade on the stock market, you need to have very in-depth specialized knowledge. And multiple studies have shown, multiple reports, everything shows that only a very select few people make money in the stock market, only maybe the top 0.1%. And those are also large funds that can move a market according to, the way they want the market to move. However, retail traders end up losing the most, or retail investors lose the most, and that's why SEBI constantly comes out with investor protection mechanisms, but they still lose. However, with opinion trading, what you're doing is you're taking topics that common people know about and you're allowing them to trade on that. So today, I might not know about the stock market, but I might know about how India's GDP is going to grow, or someone next to me might know about cricket. So they are able to take that knowledge that they know about and they're able to capitalize on that, and they're able to actually grow wealth basis that. So a good regulation for opinion trading will actually help create more wealth for the common person, and will also lead to a position where people are not being forced to trade on things they don't know about, or to try and invest into instruments that they don't know about. So, and that will overall help the digital economy also, because if you look at the numbers, companies like Probo have almost some, thousands of crores worth of funds that flow through the platform because of the fact that there are that many people trading. Now, that in and of itself leads to a further growth of an ecosystem, because you have payment gateways, banks, all of whom benefit from that inflow of funds. Then you have digital service providers like, KYC, other service providers in the economy, like, people who provide cloud services. Everyone benefits from this overall, because you are circulating that much more money. And the other thing is that opinion trading is also to an extent inflation and recession proof, because if let's say something like the repo rate changes, or the basis point, the number of basis points that the central bank is, those are cut ever, that can sometimes lead to a recession, or it can lead to inflation. However, these instruments that you have, that you're trading on in opinion trading, those are recession proof, because they're not pegged to any of these other fiscal measures that central banks take. So that way it can be a all-weather trading mechanism, and also help people grow their wealth overall and become micro entrepreneurs also. In fact, I think there have been some articles that have come out recently that I've seen, where people trading on these opinion trading apps have actually made much more money from opinion trading than they did in their regular jobs. So it is overall beneficial to the economy, not just from an information perspective, but from a financial perspective also.